Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Village Board of Arlington Heights meeting tonight. This is April 20th, 2026. And if you wouldn't mind, please all, I'd like to call this meeting to order, but please join the Village Board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Maggie, if you could please call the roll.
Trustee LaBedz.
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Here.
Trustee Santa Maria. Trustee Bertucci.
Here.
Trustee Gilbert.
Here.
Trustee Zyck.
Here.
Trustee Dunnington.
Here.
Trustee Manganaro.
Here.
President Tinaglia.
Here. Thank you, Maggie. We have a couple of things to take care of here. The first one is an approval of set of minutes from April 6th, 2026. Are there any corrections or changes for anything on those minutes from anyone on the board?
I need to pass on those minutes.
Very good. Trustee Dunnington will record a pass. Anyone else? Changes or comments or pass? Anyone from the audience have any comments or anything on the minutes?
I
All right.
would move approval of the minutes from April 6, 2026.
Motion made by trustee LaBedz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Zyck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the next one is the approval of our accounts payable, and I will call on trustee Bertucci to review the warrant register.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move approval of the warrant register for the check date April 15th, 2026, in the amount of $4,789,881.06.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Bertucci, seconded by trustee Schwingbeck. Are there any questions or comments from anyone on the board? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, a roll call vote is appropriate.
Trustee Bertucci.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
Trustee Zyck.
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro.
Aye.
Trustee Gilbert.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington.
Yes.
President Tinaglia.
Yes. Motion carries. There are no recognitions or communications tonight, correct? Manager Recklos? No public hearings. Next is citizens to be heard, and I do have 3 blue cards here. These are for items that are not on the agenda. I do have some other blue cards for items on the agenda, but I have 3 here. And let's see. Keith Moons, you're first.
Thank you, President Tinaglia. See, I just want to clarify something. I printed out an agenda for today on Friday, and when I came into tonight, it's a different agenda. And so I was wondering what is different between these two? Was this one tonight, was it printed or, posted under OMA timeframe? Because the one that I see from Friday has different new business items than the ones tonight. And so I just would ask, why would you slip this agenda in somehow and just not procedurally handle the one that was released on Friday afternoon? So which agenda are we using tonight? That's my question.
All right, well, I think that's a fair question, Mr. Moons, and I do think we have an answer for that. I think I'll turn that over to Manager Recklos or
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, when we had intended to raise this when we got to the new business section, but there was another item on the agenda relating to an ordinance regulating noise, and that item has been removed. There are still some unresolved issues with that ordinance, and so technically it was taken off, but we were going to make a note of that on the record in case anyone was interested in that.
Mr.
But
Moons.
nothing was added. Nothing was added to the agenda. Just the one item was taken off.
That's the only change.
That's the only change, correct?
Mr. Moons, did you have questions or comments on that noise ordinance that you wanted to address?
Well, not tonight. No, I just, was that second agenda posted under OMA timeframe?
The item was, the initial item that it was inclusive of the noise item was posted under OMA. This item was just taken off this evening. We were going to make note of the fact that it was removed prior to discussion of new business.
But shouldn't that agenda have been posted for OMA rules as well?
it was taken off. We could have taken it off, or it could have been, there could have been a motion this evening to remove it with it still being on. Either way, we didn't want people to show up to the meeting thinking that they were going to be discussing it. Once the decision was made that the noise item wasn't going to be discussed, it was removed off the website. But in order to stay compliant with Open Meetings Act, we were going to make note of that. But those were the two options once there was a determination that it wasn't going to be discussed.
Thank you, Manager Reckhouse. Appreciate that information. The next person who wants to be heard is Devin Gray. Come on up, Devin. Devin, I don't have to tell you, you know I've got a clock up there that you can keep an eye on. Hopefully we
I
can
got
get to
7
ready for 3
hours,
minutes.
it says.
You've got 7 hours and 36 minutes.
I can make the most of that. My name's Devin Gray. I live here in town. I'm here to talk about short-term rentals. I have to admit, getting a little frustrated with the state of this conversation. I've lived in town here for 15 years. Prior to that, I lived in Mount Prospect. As soon as I could buy a home, I moved here to pay taxes. Paid a lot of money in taxes to this town. And yet, in addition to that, I think I voted for every one of you. I worked the elections where people come to vote here at the library. I'm very involved. I work in a charity here locally, have raised millions of dollars for music education across Chicagoland. I care about the community that I'm in. Jim, I wrote you an email about this earlier. Like, we both play in bands that raise money for the community, yet I can't get your attention to talk about this issue at all. Here's my concern. This is a really important issue, and we made a quick decision on it. We talked recently at the last village board meeting about all the drinking citations here in town. We didn't strip any of them of their license to serve alcohol. We certainly didn't strip all of them from their license based on known multiple bad actors, right? So that's one precedent. We have the other side of things where we're considering legalizing gaming here in town for the benefit of local business owners and for the benefit of tax revenues. Well, short-term housing benefits tax revenues, and guess what? I'm a local business owner as well, and yet we're not having a conversation. It's pretty frustrating. We made this choice seemingly based on one resident. I've tried to find out about more complaints, but seems to be one very loud, vocal resident. I filed a FOIA request. I saw the video that she sent in complaining. The parties that she's talking about, that video, it's a homecoming. There's kids in dresses and tuxedos taking pictures with their families out front. This is not some big party that was going on until 3 in the morning. And if it was, Mr. Reckloss, we have noise ordinances that we can enforce related to those. So I'm kind of frustrated here, right? I'm doing the right things. I've tried to come up here and make the most of my one-sided 3-minute opportunities, talk to you about the potential tax revenue. No one's that interested. I've talked to you about the discrepancy in crime at our hotels versus short-term housing. Kind of got some eye rolls and not much interest. I've asked if there are other complaints. I filed a FOIA where I requested the committee of the whole meeting, the audio from that. Didn't get that. I've written every single person on this board and the village manager asking for that audio recording, which I know exists because he provided it to you, Trustee Zyck. Still haven't gotten it. So as far as I know, there's just one loud complainer here. And what I'm learning is the village board responds to that. So I guess all I can do is continue to be here, continue to be vocal, be consistent, and ask, Mr. Mayor, 3 trustees have replied to me. Could you?
If that's a direct question to me, I can tell you that I got your email today, right? And I forwarded on to our village manager because there's an issue there that I have to be mindful of. And so what I'm going to do is I will respond. I'm not trying to ignore you. I certainly don't want to do that with you, but I want to be very mindful of how that gets done. So you have my word. I will respond. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right. I think that's it for citizens to be heard from tonight. I don't see any other blue cards. Is there anyone that wants to raise their hand in the meantime? If not, we're going to move on in the agenda.
Mayor, excuse me, there was one more.
Okay, this is citizens viewers. You're right. Okay. Andy. Andy? Come on up, Andy. Andy, could you say your last name for us?
Yes, sir. Sklerenko.
Okay. Go right ahead. You've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
3 minutes. Nice to see you all again. I spoke at last meeting to discuss the short-term rental ordinance that was pending. And I also take issue in regards as to how that decision was made and the impacts that that could have in terms of the village making sound decisions based on realities and considering maybe multiple viewpoints in how things could be benefiting the village as opposed to just cutting off a tap. From our experience as being short-term rental business owners, we've noticed that we're providing a service to visitors of our family members and community members. Quite often, our guests are coming back to enjoy being in our community where they used to live, come back, celebrate different family events. Frontier Days is coming July 1st, and that's a big weekend where people love to come back and experience the village as opposed to doing a hotel or staying in a different area and having to commute. So I'd like to understand where the board is in reconsidering this. I'd like to understand that if there was ways to make use of existing operations that you could learn from. You have real life data coming in on a regular basis where if you were to work with the existing Airbnb owners, we would gladly help educate you on the types of people that come, the types of people that stay, and the types of experiences that our neighbors have with them and with our property. So my direct request is to figure out if you are all considering adjusting the current ordinance and making use of the resource of existing data coming in that's real life. You don't have to rely on other villages, on other cities. You have real life data coming in that's not hurting the village. It's not impacting the fabric of the village. It's contributing towards it and offering a service that many visitors and many residents appreciate. So it seems like this is the only recourse. I'd like to get a good understanding as to what my next steps are, or if you could direct me as to where I could approach things from an area that we can make a difference and be heard, because there was no attempt at communication and understanding what our positions were. Again, I found out about it through reading in the media, something that was being implemented, and it took a lot of work in order to read it, and I can guarantee you that a few of the Airbnb owners still hadn't known about it up until very recently. So it seems strange to kind of make this decision without taking into account or giving the opportunity for both sides of perspectives to understand those perspectives. And yeah, I'm past my point there. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I think what I would offer you is the best advice I can give you right now is to make sure that you connect with our village staff, our village manager, and but our board did have a very lengthy discussion about this, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a unanimous decision. In either case, I think that's the end of the citizens to be heard.
I'm asking for more than a lengthy discussion by the board to consider the topic. I'm asking for some real understanding of the impacts.
That's what we do.
Cool.
That's what we do. And I guarantee you that it did not go without that kind of a discussion. I see one more hand up here, so go ahead.
I don't really.
Give us your name, please, and your address. if you don't mind.
I don't really have lots of comments. Besides that, I don't think this board really listens to residents. Besides, you guys are talking between each other. And I want to commend those two gentlemen because it proves the point that you guys just do stuff, whatever you want to do, without actually listening to the residents of Arlington Heights. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to take issue with that, and it's because we do what we do because of our residents, ma'am. There's no way that you can accuse any one of us up here of not listening to our residents. That's a very That's just inaccurate, plain straight. You know what? You've had your 3 minutes tonight. I'm not going to keep doing this all night. I'm sorry. We've got a long agenda, but you can come back next Monday.
You addressed us and you've asked us to address the village manager about this issue. I have emailed Randy about this four separate times. I've not received a single reply.
You'll get one, I promise.
I've asked for the recording of the committee of the whole that he provided to one of the trustees so that I could fully understand the complaints of my neighbors.
I'm not sure if that's allowable, but I guarantee you,
If he can
you'll get
provide
what you
for a
can get.
trustee, and he can provide it for the village.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
I'll file another FOIA.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
If you're telling us to talk to the manager and he's not replying to us, you're basically telling us to pound sand. So
All right.
I understand where you're coming from.
Fair enough. All right, we are moving on from the citizens to be heard to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda has a list from A through M of items that will be voted on with one vote. And I know that there is one item that wants to be removed, and I will call on trustee Manganaro for that.
Thank you, Mayor Tinaglia. I would like to remove item L, the ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year of 2025.
All right, that shall be removed from this first vote of the consent agenda. We'll discuss that separately. Is there any other trustee on the board that would like to remove an item on this list? Is there anyone in the audience that would wish to have a different item removed from this list to be discussed? Is there anyone on the board that wants to vote no or pass on any items on this list? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the remaining items on this consent agenda?
I would move that we approve items A through K and item M.
Motion
Second.
made by trustee Schwingbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Dunnington. Any further discussion from anyone in the room? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. Maggie?
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes?
Trustee Dunnington,
Yes.
I meant
Trustee
roll call
Gilbert.
vote.
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro,
Aye.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Zyck,
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci,
Yes.
President Tinaglia.
Yes. Thank you, Maggie. Yes, I misspoke. I meant roll call, but I said voice. All right, let's go ahead and take up item L right now. Trustee Manganaro, you had some questions on that.
I do, thank you again. We did discuss this at quite some length in last week's committee of the whole, and with some hesitation, I did vote in favor of the ordinance as it stands. With subsequent discussions and consideration, I decided I would like to remove it because I have concerns about how we're disposing of the surplus this year. And I guess I will start by stating my intent to abate that portion of the tax that resulted from the increase in the 2025 property tax levy. And I will just state that in the form of a motion to amend the proposed budget ordinance to abate the surplus generated by the 2025 2.46% property tax levy increase of $943,000. I further move that we amend the ordinance to remove item 2, the transfer of $500,000 to the municipal parking fund, and reduce the transfer to the capital projects fund by $443,000. That leaves the total with the capital projects fund at $3.112 million.
All right, is that a motion?
That is a motion.
All right. Trustee Manganaro has made a motion. Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion is made by trustee Manganaro, seconded by trustee Dunnington. Further discussion. Is there anyone on the board that wishes to speak on this? Trustee Zyck?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I understand what trustee Manganaro is trying to do here. But here's the issue that I see. We have had a lot of surpluses. We've had 8 surpluses over the last 9 years. And I know as a trustee, but also as a citizen, you kind of look at that and you go, okay, what's exactly going on here? What is going on here is that our departments are doing a fantastic job. We put a budget through every year, and they are coming underneath that budget every year, so it's allowing us to have these surpluses, and they have to be recognized for everything that we're trying to do. But it is something when every year we do have a surplus, and I think that's where we're getting at, especially in certain economic times. You know, I think Trustee Manganaro, apologize if I'm putting words in your mouth, but, you know, we're seeing, you know, gas prices increase, we're seeing food prices increase, and he's trying to figure out a way to perhaps help those situations for those people who need something like that. And I recognize that. And again, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but that's the intention that I'm seeing. I do understand it. What I'm a little concerned about, but I don't know if this is the right time or the right place for us to try to do something like that and try to figure out what can we do as a village. One thing I'm a little concerned about is that 8 out of the last 9 years we've had the surplus, and we've taken the surplus and we've doled it out to areas that need it and where we need to put it. But are we becoming reliant on that as a budget item, as a way of budgeting and a way of doing our finances? And what I'm saying to that is, I worked for a manufacturing company years ago where we were doing very well. We were running overtime all the time. And the employees that were getting overtime for many years were enjoying the fruits of our success. But then what happened is that when we had an economic downturn where we couldn't do that overtime anymore, they lost that income. The problem is that they had adjusted their lifestyles to account for that overtime. And are we doing something kind of similar because we're always getting this money, the surplus, and that we're getting used to running our budget on that? Or is there something that we can do? And it's not an easy question that I'm asking here. Is there something that we can do when the budget, and I think this is what we need to do is when the budget time comes up, is a discussion that we have to have exactly how we're doing these things and how we're living with the money that we have. Because I want to make sure that I know this money is there for a downturn, but how are we living going forward and with the expenses that we have in house? I don't think the abatement is the right thing at the right time, at this particular time, but I do think it is a discussion that we definitely have to have as a village and as a board going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Zyck. Is there anyone else on the board who wanted to make a comment? Trustee Dunnington.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, if we were to approve an abatement of approximately of the $943,000, so I believe that would be about $30 or $40 that each property owner would receive. Is that correct?
A typical property owner, it would be between $30 and $35 off of one, if there was an abatement off of 1 year's tax bill, yes.
Okay, but it wouldn't change the tax rate for an upcoming year?
Correct.
Correct, okay. And if that same amount of money went towards the capital to funding roads, what would that money be able to do?
That amount of money, you could resurface about 1.4 miles of roads.
For each property owner? Like one?
No,
Okay.
if you abate the taxes, each a typical household would get about $30 in savings. If you don't abate the taxes, we would be able to resurface about 1.4 miles more of road than what we budgeted.
Okay. Okay. And one thing we talked about in our discussion on Monday was, I know that Public Works is doing as much as possible to keep our roads being able to last as long as possible. I think that it would be great to hear a strategy if there's from Public Works, if there's any additional ways that we can make our roadways last longer because the expenses are going up so much every year. If we can do things like a road diet or curb cuts to cut down on the amount that we have to spend every year for roadways, since it is such a big expense for the village.
No, as you know, the Windsor Road Diet is being looked at as a potential pilot program, and that'll come back to the board at some point. Yeah, and once the board's done, I'd be happy to make a comment or two, Mayor.
Please do.
I don't know if Trustee Dunnington was, yeah. No, what I was gonna say is, I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at this. The reason there's a surplus is, there's a couple of reasons. One, the village spent less money than we thought we were gonna spend in some areas. But unfortunately, what we are seeing is, in some cases, there are some things that are costing us more than we thought. And so, one could go through the year and go through the motions and spend what was budgeted us, and we don't do that. What we do is, if we can save money, we save money, but the reality is there are some things that cost more, and we come back and say, can we do this a little bit extra, because this is a need? Because of market conditions, because costs of road construction goes up, because of those factors, and that's just real life. Things change. You never can plan a year 100% perfectly, but when we, in many of the years where we had a surplus, we actually had a flat property tax rate. I'll point that out. In one year where we had a larger surplus, we did provide a $1.6 million abatement to residents. That same year, we also eliminated vehicle stickers and pet tags, and so we have eliminated revenues to save the taxpayers money, when that was appropriate as well. And so we try to look at this year to year. We're definitely going to be looking at, we've heard the board loud and clear in terms of assumptions, for budget assumptions for the 2027 budget year. We're going to be talking about that in detail, as we always do in June. And we know that the board wants more information, wants to revisit some of these things that we've been doing for years, and staff thinks that's a good, healthy conversation to have at that time. But,
Thank you, Manager Recklouse. There's a number of things that I could say right now, but I'm not, because I think it's appropriate that we move this along and then revisit this, as you just described, in June and again in October as we do our serious budget talks. We've had a pretty lengthy discussion on all of this recently. The vote was taken and it was approved to go forward this direction. I'm honoring Trustee Manganaro's and Trustee Dunnington's request to discuss a little further tonight, but I'm going to withhold any further comment from myself. There are 3 residents who would like to address the board.
Mayor, I think we're not done on the board.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
But I do want to get to these 3
Okay.
for sure. So other comments from the board members, if we want to, for now? Trustee Bertucci, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like to say that while I understand the abatement situation, I wasn't really in favor I don't think you do that, abate or return dollars, when there's things to be fixed and there's bills to pay. It's that simple. And in our case, I think there's things to be fixed and there's bills to pay. And so let's move them to the bills to be paid and fix the things that need to be fixed. In addition, Randy, you were just describing something that's absolutely true. So it's not like we can say, okay, well, we didn't have as, we were a little bit budgeted high here and we've got some extra money, but we were low here. We just, I shouldn't say, you can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to take this and move it over here and pay that. That has to go through a process like this. So, but that's my thoughts, Mayor.
Agree. Thank you. Anyone else on the board?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Manganaro.
I did want to get the motion on quickly, so I withheld comments. And I appreciate getting to have this conversation where the public can see it. I wanted to point out that in December of 2024, the board did vote to increase the tax levy by the amount that I said. And the discussion at that time centered around the need to purchase a 5th ambulance, if I recall correctly. Due to really great work by our staff at the leadership level and down, we did come in under that budget for spend, and we had revenues that we did not anticipate through non-property tax sources. In those years when we have had surpluses with a flat levy, I can really see disposing of it to get ahead on some of the bills we might have to pay to improve our capital situation, to pave more roads. And I think when we have bills to pay and things to fix, we ought to be having those conversations at budget time. That's why I specifically targeted the amount of money that was involved in that levy increase. I think it makes sense to return that portion of the taxpayers, of the money to the taxpayers, since it wasn't needed for the stated purpose. The reason for the choices that I made in terms of changing the transfers, the parking fund for some years has not been self-sustaining, really not since the pandemic. And I think we need to have a conversation with the community about how and whether we should continue to subsidize our parking fund and maintain, whether we need to maintain free parking, what is the cost of that parking, and how should we pay for it? Is property taxes the way that we want to pay for it? Lastly, the capital fund has, from the discussions I've had with Manager Reckless, and please correct me if I am mistaken, has the most flexibility to absorb both the reduction and to get the bills that we will need to pay for paid through other means. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Manganaro. Anyone else? Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. I just want to comment that, you know, we like to think we know what bills we have to pay and what things we need to fix, but inevitably throughout the year, things happen. There can be a significant water main break that causes roads to crumble, and that needs to be fixed. Or sometimes when we have budgeted for to purchase a vehicle, it comes in over budget, and we need to reallocate money for that, and we do that consistently through the year. So I think that it's hard to always know that what is going to happen. And the other thing, and I know this has been a discussion in the past in terms of, you know, whether we have full employment in the village, and when there are vacancies, we are not paying for that, but we can't always guarantee that we have vacancies at any point throughout the year, and therefore we don't have salaries and benefits that have to be paid. So I think sometimes it's just really hard to anticipate what is going to happen, and basically sometimes impossible. And that's what I've seen in my 13 years here.
Thank you, Trustee LaBedz. I think I will make one brief comment on it, and that is, I know that our yearly financial reports are in the neighborhood of $230 million.
Correct.
And we're charged with trying to do a budget that somehow works with all that, and we missed it by how much this time? 900,000?
Louise, go ahead.
For the surplus?
Yeah,
Just about 3%, so 4.7 million was the surplus.
yeah. So
So just a very modest amount, 2 to 3% over under budget.
less than 5% that we missed it by. So I know our staff is doing everything they can to be fiscally careful and forward-thinking on everything. And I also know that if Chris, our Public Works Director, had his way, the levy would be much bigger than it was, because he would want to do more roads. And this is an opportunity for him to do just a little bit more roads. And you can have my $30 to do the roads. That's how I look at this. I do have 4 blue cards. Is there anyone on the board that wants to speak quickly before I go there? Rob Brodecki, you are up first. On deck is Renee Stenko.
Thank you, as always. It's interesting, about a year ago, my first time I came here for a meeting to speak, it was on the budget and how we are using a lot of money for road work. And here we are talking about how road diets can reduce our cost for the future. Here we are a year and change later, and we are talking about moving a lot of money from surplus to work on roads. Not here to try and fight that, but I'm going to ask the board and village staff to look more seriously at road diets to try and prevent needing additional funds in the future. These are federal, road diets are a Federal Transit and Highway Authority approved and supported way to reduce future maintenance costs. If our staff takes the money and moves forward with just redoing roads the same way they are, as they are, then next we'll be looking at 5 million, 7 million, whatever it becomes. As Trustee Dunnington pointed out, things are just getting more and more expensive to do these roads. If we start doing things like add bike lanes, curb bump outs, pedestrian refuge islands, or traffic circles, we can reduce the amount of roadway in the future that we'll need to maintain while reducing our costs, while also satisfying strategic priority number 4, making our streets safer for all. In last week's meeting, Trustee Dunnington raised the idea of curb bump outs and was told it's not doable because of minimum turning radius for emergency vehicles. This is a valid point, but if you look at communities in the area like Mount Prospect, Plainfield, Evanston, Schaumburg, and of course Chicago, these are places adding curb bump outs and other road diet methods. The streets of Chicago are far narrower. I lived on one and it was far narrower than my current state of Campbell, but emergency vehicles are able to traverse it. Even in our community, we have roads that are far more narrow. I ask our public works departments, planning, and other relevant departments to reach out to their peers in communities that are doing road diets and see how they are managing to implement these while still meeting requirements for emergency vehicles and other concerns that have been brought up by public works when talking road diets, like how they handle water drains or snow removal for bike lanes. And also, how can we more quickly implement things without needing years and thousands of dollars for engineering studies? Mount Prospect and Chicago are doing lots with paint, plastic bollards, and rubber pedestrian islands, things that can be done quickly and used for real-world studies on how people respond to these before moving forward with a more permanent project where it makes sense. Our residents want safer streets and better use of our tax dollars. Please use this opportunity to address both of these. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Renee, you're up, and on deck is Tom Socha.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you tonight. I would encourage you all to consider the abatement, while I also recognize that it's such a great endeavor to have to cover such a large budget. I just wanted to underline the fact that a lot of us in this room may be very, may not understand that some people are really struggling out there right now, and that what people are drawn most to in Arlington Heights is the amount of services and nightlife that are here, and we shouldn't take that for granted. A few meetings ago, we were just talking about video gaming, and how I spoke with some of the the owners of the businesses that are farther away, and they are talking about how they're struggling to find people to fill their businesses, and a lot of that has to do with disposable income. So while $30 might not seem a lot to you, that could mean them not participating in commerce in the local area. Another thing I just wanted to underline is that there are a lot of outside factors that are affecting property taxes, as far as like inflation from like large national corporate entities that are buying houses and inflating those property values. And so it's very hard for people to make ends meet at this time, especially in Cook County. I also wanted to underline that there are a lot of EPA grants, whether that be at the state level or at the federal level, that would give us a lot of this financial momentum to repair our roads and to also repair them in a green way. There's a lot of green infrastructure and funding available for that green infrastructure that would allow us to have better flow in between different sites in Arlington Heights, and greatly affect the use of commerce by pedestrians and cyclists. And I just wanted to underline that, I'm so sorry, that we can also, by looking at the budget, I noticed that we have a lot of spending on sewers and water treatments, and I would like to encourage the board to investigate native plants as a way of lowering the cost of water and sort of transitioning and thinking about greener solutions, so that we aren't consistently having to pay for these capital investments that are continuing to go up. I'm sorry, that was a bit scattered, but thank you so much.
Renee, that's quite okay. Thank you. Tom, you are up, Tom Smocha, and last is Janice.
Good evening. My name is Tom Smocha. I'm a 38-year resident of the village. And I have some questions regarding the proposal where it seems like the 4 expenditures listed will completely liquidate the $4.6 million surplus. I think there is a parallel issue here. If I'm understanding it right, at the end of December, there was identified a need for $800,000 more to be added to the budget, and that a tax levy was proposed to cover that. I believe that it would be more fiscally responsible if you took that $800,000 out of the $4.6 million surplus and then reallocated the remaining funds over these 4 expenditures. There seems to be a parallel here in that on one hand we have a surplus, and on another hand we're $800,000 short. That seems to be a contradiction to me. Anyway, in these times here where individuals are being squeezed on all fronts, I do not think another tax is necessary when there are these surplus funds to cover any additional need. Again, on one hand, you seem to have a $4.6 million surplus, which you've already going to liquidate, but on the other hand, there's talk of an $800,000 shortfall that needs to be covered. Again, I think that the money should come out of the surplus first, and then these 4 expenditures could be allocated over the remaining amount. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice, you're up.
I'm trying to do like a little bit of math. So you're saying there's 27,641 roughly homes that pay property tax? Is that correct?
You got to address the board.
I'm sorry, say that again, Janice?
So if you're saying $940,000, right, that, okay, each home is going to get like $34 back. So you divide that and you get 27,647 homes, I'm assuming, that pay property tax. Is that correct?
Remember, you're talking to the board,
Okay.
so please don't go that
All right.
direction. So ask your questions and state your statements, whatever you need,
Okay.
and then we'll get some answers for
Is
you.
it true that in Arlington Heights, we have 27,647 homes that pay property
Okay,
tax? here?
I've
Okay.
got that down as
All
one
right.
question.
Okay, because then that would make the math of the $34, but that kind of had me a little off. Okay, so you guys went to a lot of trouble, a big discussion to raise a tax levy to raise less than $940,000, but returning an overcharge seems to be staggeringly difficult. I don't understand. How is that just somehow not worth it in your eyes, but it was worth it to take more from us? Taxpayers are squeezed, and like I said, middle class wages have stayed the same for roughly 45 years while the cost of living continuously goes up. Property taxes in itself are just, it's choking. I mean, it's like, at what point are we killing our customer here? It's bad. This would make a good look. It seems like a small amount of money, but it's a good statement to like, oh, hey, you know what? This is coming back to you because we care about you. We overcharge. Sorry. Other taxes made up for it. And this is your money. We're going to make sure you get it back. It means a lot. It means that the boat's starting to turn a little bit and people are feeling like things are, happening for them somehow. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I can figure out a way to run through $940,000. You give me 15 minutes, I can, yeah, we can all figure out how to spend it. But we're talking about what's the right thing to do. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Janice.
Hoping you'll do the right thing.
I think what we'll do is we'll ask staff if they can answer that question. Is that an appropriate calculation if you do the reverse math? Are there 27,000 homes that we use as an example?
That wouldn't be that's about right in terms of the number of homes, but that's not the way you calculate it because businesses pay taxes, multifamily property owners pay taxes. Anyone that owns a property pay taxes, not just the 27,000 residential homeowners. that the way that's calculated is we looked at the average sale price of a home, which I think was between 350 and 400,000, somewhere in that
Roughly.
ballpark. That's the average sale price, and you applied the taxes to that. So that's what we say it's a typical taxpayer is an average taxpayer. That's how much it would cost them is between $30 and $35.
But a person who owns an office building or
They
some
pay a lot more.
shopping center, that number is going to be quite a bit bigger.
Absolutely.
Right. I guess in general terms, I don't disagree with any of the statements that anyone has made here today. The point that I think we can't forget about, though, is none of this money is being spent frivolously on things that is not needed. If all the roads were perfect, if all the ambulance were paid for, if there was no need to do any more work or any other bills to pay, as Trustee Bertucci said, then to me, it's a no-brainer. Sure, give the money back, whether it's $30 or $2 or $200. Give it back. But that's not how government works. Government is doing their best to guess every year on what we should collect to cover not only the things that we know we have to cover, but to cover inflation. We all see inflation every year, and last year, what was it, 3%?
It was
just under 3%. And to have 3% or so, 5% extra here in this case, and we can do some roads that need to be done, those are the kinds of decisions that this board is charged with making. And I guess that's all I'll say for now. I think there's plenty to discuss, and I'm sure we will have a very hearty, very, thorough discussion come June and again in October and how this gets done. And I'm confident that it will get handled appropriately. I have all the confidence in the staff as well as this board. So, is there anyone else that wants to speak about anything on this item before we have a vote? Is there anyone on the board that wants to discuss further? Okay, so there was a motion made by Trustee Manganaro, seconded by Trustee Dunnington. Does staff, is there a repeat that we can make so we know what we're voting on?
let me pull it up here.
Do you have the motion that was made? Yeah, I would ask maybe the clerk can read the
I
motion.
think you're voting on the motion that Trustee Manganaro made at this point.
Yeah, he was very specific with where the funds would not go.
Right.
For example, maybe Trustee Manganaro can recap real briefly.
Sure, the $943,000 was to come from eliminating item 2, which was the $500,000 transfer to the parking fund, and reducing the capital improvement fund by $331,000.
That was like 400.
400.
Sorry, reduced it 443 to 3.112 million.
Right. Okay. So that's the motion on the floor. It was seconded. This, I think, would have to be a roll call vote. So go ahead, Maggie.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
No.
Trustee Zyck?
No.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
No?
Trustee Gilbert?
No.
Trustee LaBedz?
No.
President Tinaglia?
No. Okay, so the motion fails. It was a good discussion,
Thank you.
and I'm glad we talked about it here today a little bit. I think there's good information there to use in the future. That wraps up the consent agenda.
Mayor, we do need an
Mayor,
alternative motion.
Do you want an alternative motion on this item, Mayor?
Say that again?
Do you want to entertain an alternative motion on this item?
Oh, that's right. We have to move.
You don't have to, but you
We
can.
should. We should make a motion regarding item L. So who would like to do that?
Mayor, I'd be happy to. I'd like to make a motion amending the annual budget of the Village of Arlington Heights, County of Cook, State of Illinois for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025, ending December 31st, 2025, for the general fund surplus.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Any discussion on that?
Can I clarify, Mayor, that this
Yeah.
motion
As
is
discussed.
to adopt the ordinance as presented? I'll make sure that-
Exactly.
Okay, make sure that's
Yes,
clear.
correct.
That was the intention?
I
Exactly.
want to clarify that.
All right,
Thank you.
very good. That is the motion, and it's been seconded. Is there further discussion from anyone? Anyone from the audience? Okay, roll call vote again.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes?
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro?
Pass.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. Okay, that motion carries as well. All right, now we are done with the consent agenda, and we're going to move on to new business. And we have 5 items of new business. The first 4 are going to be appointments. And earlier this evening, we had a discussion in the Committee of Whole where 4 individuals were interviewed for appointments on various commissions. And where is my list? Right here. Yep, I've got it. I want to call on Trustee Dunnington for the first one.
Okay. I move to concur in the mayor's appointment of Robert Bertucci to the Housing Commission effective May 1st, 2026, with a term ending April 30th, 2029.
Second.
Motion was made by Trustee Dunnington, seconded by Trustee Zyck. Any further discussion from anyone? Anyone in the audience? This is just a voice vote, right?
Correct.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None. Motion carries. Robert, if you please step up to the podium up there, I'm going to swear you in. Get the right one here. There it is.
Podium or up to the
Oh, you're right there, right there.
Into the microphone.
Yeah, you're going to have to speak. This is getting recorded. You're on TV now and everything.
right.
You're a movie star. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Robert Bertucci,
I, Robert Brodecki,
having been appointed to the Housing Commission
having been appointed to the Housing Commission
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and
do
affirm
solemnly swear and confirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office according to the best of my abilities.
No, you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So this is your pin to wear on your lapel, like all the other members of the board do and all the other commissions. Take this over to the clerk and sign in front of her, and you're all official. Congratulations. And hopefully all the other 3 paid attention, because you're going to do the same thing in a minute here. All right. The next item B, I'm going to call on Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move, as I did earlier this evening, to the mayor's appointment of Richard Bondarovich for appointment to the Design Commission effective May 1st, 2026, with a term ending April 30th, 2029.
Second.
Motion is made by Trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by Trustee Bertucci. Any further discussion or comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Rich, come on up. Same drill. Raise your right hand and say, I, Richard Bondarovich,
I, Richard Bondarovich,
having been appointed to the office of Design Commissioner
have been appointed to the Office of Design Commissioner
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
to the office of the best of my abilities.
I know you will. Congratulations. Come on up. And take that over to Maggie and sign that in her presence, and there's your pin to wear with us all. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, number 3, Joe Footlick, come on up. I'm going to call on Trustee LaBedz for this one.
Thank you. I move, as I did earlier, to concur in the mayor's appointment of Joe Footlick to the Zoning Board of Appeals effective May 1, 2026, term ending April 30th, 2031.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck. Any further comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Very good. All right, Joe, you're ready to go. You got this memorized? I don't even have it memorized yet. Joe, repeat after me. I, Joe Footlick,
I, Joe Footlick,
having been appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals
have been appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office according to the best of my ability.
Very good. No, you will. Thank you. Congratulations. And just like the others, if you would take that to see Maggie and sign in front of her, that'd be great. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. All right, and last but not least, this is going to be David Hugaboom. Come on up, and I'm going to call on Trustee Bertucci for this.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move as I did earlier this evening to concur in the mayor's appointment of David Hugaboom to the Zoning Board of Appeals effective May 1st, 2026, with a term ending April 30th, 2031.
Motion made by Trustee Bertucci, seconded.
All right, I will second that.
Okay. Motion made by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Manganaro. Any further discussion or anyone from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries. All right. You ready, Dave?
Ready.
This is going to be a quiz. I, David Hugaboom,
I, David Hogaboom,
having been appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals
having been appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
solemnly swear and affirm
I do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office to the according to the best of my
You
abilities.
got it. Fabulous. Congratulations. And if you, again, take that over to Maggie, sign it. Here's your pin to wear proudly like the rest of us. Congratulations and welcome. All right, I think that ends my party here. I'm going to move on to item E, and I think we're going to hand this off to Village Manager Recklouse, if I have that correctly.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we're going to be presenting a project that we've been working on for some months. It's actually was part of the 2024 to 25 strategic priorities. And so you're going to be hearing some presentation from our Director of Planning and Community Development, Emily Rodman, and our Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development, Michael Lisacatos. I think Ms. Rodman's going to kick things off here.
I am. Thank you. I just wanted to take one moment to acknowledge that this truly has been an interdepartmental effort. Staff was working with members from all of the village departments in putting this together, but did want to say specifically a very significant thank you to Assistant Director Lisacatos and our Planner One, Darko Bojan, in the audience. They really spearheaded this effort in bringing everyone together. So with that, I will turn it over to our Assistant Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you to the board for giving us some time tonight to go over the sustainability element. And this will actually be formally the first sustainability element for the Village of Arlington Heights. And the sustainability element was developed in response to a village board strategic priority, as was mentioned by Randy, that was set over 2024 and 2025. The priority was to pursue environmentally sustainable programs. They came with a specific activity of updating our energy efficiency conservation strategy, which was developed in 2009, excuse me. The previous plan focused mostly on energy measures and energy efficiency, and while many of the goals are still relevant, many of the pathways for implementation today span across our different departments and involve a much larger definition of sustainability. Just a brief overview of how we developed the plan. It really started with an assessment of that EECS and audit of the activities that you often see in the quarterly and annual reporting. A sustainability working group was pulled together between all of the different departments because of all the different activities that currently go into sustainability practices. From there, a draft plan was circulated to the departments, to the village board, and after review and comment from our different outlets at our departments, we brought it to the Environmental Commission in January. And that was really a kickoff to the public comment period, which lasted until the end of March. I mentioned the Sustainability Plan Working Group, which was an effort between the departments to collect information, vet the strategies, and review the draft plan. You see the list of the departments that were involved here, and it involved a number of people in each of those departments. The group created a dialogue around topics of sustainability and afforded opportunity to share how other municipalities were going about sustainability and prioritizing their activities. It also created a sounding board for updates in the future as the plan is vetted and is updated, which we'll get into a little bit in our implementation activities. Some of the highlights of the plan really speak to how much more expansive our view of sustainability is compared to the 2009 plan. It mirrors what many of the other municipalities in the state have created as a roadmap for sustainable practices. It also creates a comprehensive list of our accomplishments from 2009. While it's not completely exhaustive, you'll see that there's quite a bit more than that was in that original plan. The scope of conservation has also broadened since 2009 to touch virtually every aspect of our municipality, but also people's lives. And that definition, which talks about meeting our needs today, but also looking towards the future, which I think comes up with many of the topics you discuss. The plan's organized into 7 topics that I'll speak to in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. The Greenest Region Compact, the GRC, was really the framework that allowed us to build the plan. When we were researching how to best expand from our original plan, we searched out a number of avenues, and we kept coming back to the Greenest Region Impact, or GRC. It gave us 10 umbrella topics in the original GRC, which is organized through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. And the village board has actually endorsed this in 2007 when the original compact was announced, and also in 2016 when it was updated. So it seemed like a perfect fit for us to build the plan. Two of the other additional resources that helped guide the working group were the National Community Survey and also the 2024 Priority Climate Action Plan. The NCS was administered by the village. It's based on responses from our residents, and the responses are compared to national averages, include questions about mobility, community design, utilities, and the natural environment. The PCAP, or PSAP, was developed by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning in coordination with US EPA and the state. And what it does, it gave us strategies that could link to our state and federal priorities and potentially open up avenues for funding when we get into implementation activities. So the plan is organized into 7 topic areas that you see here. These topics are simplified from the 10 that were in the original GRC, and focus on municipal operations that would have the most significant impact on the environment and the quality of life of our residents. You can see that it's also broken down into the strategies and sub-strategies, along with timelines and lead departments for each of those activities. Each topic area begins with an overview of the subject area that links to the National Community Survey and also the Climate Action Plan. And before it jumps into the implementation strategies, each section has a robust list of achievements. So if you go through the plan, there's a number of things that we've done since 2009 that really speak to our residents' needs, our department needs, and also some of our budget needs as it comes to being sustainable and creative and innovative as well. Also included on this is a spotlight on sustainability, which affords an opportunity for providing a little bit more detail and narrative on some of the projects of special significance. These are a couple of the examples here, which includes our electric vehicle chargers in the Vale Ave garage and some of the LED upgrades to our traffic signals, which reduce our energy use, but also allow us to have funding avenues from ComEd. So I allude to the 7 topics, and I'll briefly run through each of those here. The first one is energy, which was at the center of the last plan and includes 3 goals and 15 strategies. And a great deal of that progress has been made through our infrastructure upgrades. I alluded to the LED streetlight upgrades. And also, this work has been recognized by US EPA, not only on a project basis, but also some of the individuals who manage some of this work at our Public Works Department. The land category, which is near and dear to planning and community development, is some of the most meaningful impacts that we have in our community. And this has 4 goals and 24 strategies. And some of the achievements that we have that speak to these goals are implementation of our downtown master plan and some of the sustainable transit-oriented development we've been able to achieve around that downtown. We also maintain over 36,000 parkway trees and continue investment in some of our green space, including Harmony Park. And those are some of the major activities that we'll be continuing that will keep the legacy of these goals moving forward. Transportation, including roads, bikes, pedways. We've heard a little bit about that tonight. And some of our transit access are all critical elements of the village's infrastructure. Making sure they're effectively managed to support multimodal access and support the land uses that connect them is critical in terms of sustainable outcomes. How we link those land uses together and make things more efficient will allow us to operate more sustainably in the future. This has 5 goals and 25 strategies. And many of our achievements under the mobility topic include expanding some of our on-demand bus service with PACE, providing leadership through our electric vehicle implementation, not only through the chargers, but also our EV fleet, and some of our and adopting our bike and ped plan. Excuse me. Engaging community extends beyond sharing information. It involves cultivating a shared identity around sustainable outcomes and principles. Many of our achievements under the community topic include our Tree University program, recognition through Tree City, and also partner organizations that we work with, and also a lot of the different community events that allow our residents access, whether it's paint recycling, things of that nature, to extend their efforts in sustainability. And many of those are really mirrored in these 5 goals and the 23 strategies that go along with them. Efficient municipal operations is essential in implementing sustainability practices, and opportunity for us to also be a leader in the region. The 5 goals and the 19 strategies developed under this topic reflecting some of our innovative achievements, which include some of our beet juice, anti-ice street treatments, upgrading those LED street lights, which not only makes them more efficient and we have to replace them less frequently, the pace at which our Public Works Department is able to do that is actually incentivized with larger funding avenues for those things. So by getting them done efficiently, we're able to maximize our payouts on those items every single year. And we've been able to have a great deal of success in optimizing that. Waste and recycling, I think the board is very familiar with the great work that the village does in this arena and the impact it has in terms of environmental health and meeting our sustainability goals. The achievements in waste and recycling are really impressive. I think in a 4-year period, we recycled over 1 million pounds of 1 million tons of paper recycling. This effort extends through also our downtown. We have our trash and recycling pickup and many of the events that I alluded to earlier that are extended to our residents. Sorry. water topic. I know it was touched on some of the conversations earlier tonight, and the amount of work and the infrastructure and time that goes into our water and stormwater capacity here at the village is immense. To that end, that this has the largest amount of goals and strategies. It has 7 goals and 43 strategies. The list of the achievements is very long on this one. It was quite a challenge when we sat down with Public Works. There's quite a bit of work that's going on, and you can imagine not all of it's at the surface. A lot of this under those roads that we've been discussing. A lot of our residents, and many of you have probably already experienced this at your homes with having some of your water meter upgrades. This allows us to find out what's happening in those systems faster. It leads to better environmental outcomes. So this is just a really good example of a core project that's in the sustainability spotlight that talks about what we've been doing. On the stormwater side, the village has had great success with implementing green infrastructure to improve the water quality reaching our streams and rivers. The design and policies behind these initiatives dovetail with state and regional efforts and can open up future avenues for funding as well. On implementation, as mentioned, many of the goals and strategies in the plan mirror some of the ongoing activities in village operations. When we looked at the GRC, it's really an amalgamation of what our neighbors are doing. All the municipalities in the region put all of their implementation activities into that framework. We're able to pull out what we think speaks to us, and many of the activities are already underway. So it really gives us a good network and a base to tell us that we're going in the right direction, but also advance some more specific strategies in that regard. The plan sets a 3-year time frame to revisit the goals and strategies based on this reporting, and some of the new goals should look to create more precise and actionable activities for the future as we get that reporting year over year. In summary, the sustainability plan documents a great deal of success in addressing sustainable outcomes through municipal operations since the original energy plan was adopted in 2009. These successes have had a meaningful impact on our community and our municipal operations, and it creates a more comprehensive framework for the village to gauge future outcomes. And just briefly give you an overview of some of the public comment. As I alluded to, we presented this at the Environmental Commission in January, and then that really kicked off the plan to the public. We posted it to the village website and collected comments through March 31st. We did hear from our Environmental Commission. They gave us detailed comments. We also got some comments from the Safe Streets Alliance, and those have all been, not all been, we've considered all of them and made some changes to the final plan that was in your board packet tonight. With that, I'll take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Michael. Nicely done. Questions from the board? Anyone? Trustee Dunnington.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for all of your hard work on this plan. It's obviously that there's a lot of work that's gone into it from all staff and many different departments. So thank you very much. One resident comment I received was, if you could explain, or maybe village manager, a new business, what is the requirement for bike racks for a new development?
It depends. I don't know if Ms. Rodman, can you comment off the cuff?
Yes.
Actually, Mike, all right, we'll just keep moving it down.
Darko deals with this more day to day, so he might help me out a little bit. But it is based on the square footage of the business. So that we have regulations under our parking. We have parking for vehicles. We also have a parking for bicycles section of our zoning code, and we base it off of that. And there's a calculation of how much parking bike parking they have to provide with a minimum for that as well. Okay. And I have the specific ratios off the top of my head. I don't know if Darko has those handy. He works with it every day, so he does have that.
He nodded his head.
Yes. There you go. And the minimum is 2. So it's a minimum of 2, and then an additional one every 6,000 square feet. Oh, okay. So, but it's a minimum of 2. We can get you the square footage.
Okay. Yep. And if a resident wanted to request an area that they felt needed bike racks, what would be the best way for them to do that?
They could communicate it through the planning department, through Public Works Department. We would work cooperatively to locate that, and we would obviously copy it through the village manager's office.
Great. One thing that I didn't see in the plan was the village working towards any environmental designations that are available. For example, there's the Soul Smart designation, which has to do with being a solar panel friendly environment. Or there's a monarch butterfly initiative that communities are working towards. There's also bicycle friendly community status. And so I'm wondering if that was considered, any of those kind of designations were considered as part of this plan or moving forward.
There were a number of the designations that were looked at from a specific standpoint. I can't remember all of the ones we considered, but we did work with each department to determine which ones might be the most applicable. When we use the GRC tool, it actually has links to a lot of those different initiatives. Many of them were on the federal side,
Okay.
and many of the programs have been either changed or moved off different websites. But there's a lot of flexibility in the plan, and it's kind of alluded to in the implementation section that we should be open to some of those designations, but also using the detailed quarterly and yearly metrics that we get will allow us to kind of refine some of those strategies to get a little bit more precise every iteration of the plan.
Great. And I was really glad to hear at the end you said that we're going to review this in 3 years to kind of see where we're at and all the different, in the implementation of the different.
That is the plan.
That's great.
If I could comment on that too, looking at the 3-year window, this plan really gets us going for the plan was to be developed as part of last year's business plan cycle. These goals are going to be implemented in this year's business or this cycle's 2-year plan. That 3-year kind of puts us there where we can begin reviewing at the beginning of the next cycle and kind of have a report out in the middle of it. We thought that made the most sense in terms of fitting in our planning cycle because there's a lot of things in here and we think this is going to take a couple years to get all these things really going.
Great. Thank you again for your hard work.
Welcome.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on this side? Trustee LaBedz?
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. This is really an amazing plan, and it's so thorough. And I appreciate everyone in every department who works so hard on this, pulling all this together, and the utilization of like the GRC2 framework and things like that, and so that not everything is done from scratch. Right. So my question has to do with renewable energy. Mm-hmm. And years ago, when I was on the Plan Commission, Charles brought forth a discussion of changes in allowing residents to use certain kinds of renewable energy, not just solar, but even windmill or geothermal. And I just wondered if anything more has come of that, and if there's any uses of those other kinds of renewable energies. I know we're going to have a big celebration, a big solar-bration
Right.
on Wednesday with regards to what is being done on Public Works and the solar panels there. But this was more geared towards homeowners when we had the discussion, like I said, years ago, and it didn't go anywhere.
So I can say that you do see the proliferation of solar panels on roofs on a pretty regular basis. We're seeing it with some of our multifamily developments, including Arbor House. They actually have a solar panel array that's planned as part of that. They have a green roof installation. I haven't personally seen a lot of the geothermal, but the plan does speak to allowing flexibility in our code and to look at those things so that we can allow room for that. I know we often ask applicants, and this is more on the commercial side, that's what we review more on the Plan Commission side, to look at sustainability efforts. We have an update to our energy code, which allows for at least a lot more energy efficient building techniques when it comes to just regular building. But that's something we can look into more and have a specific emphasis on when we look at those programs. I don't think there's a lot of state support for those programs right now, but as those things potentially come on board, I think it'll be important for us to watch for that.
Yeah, and it might be something that people or businesses would may be interested in the long run. And I know there's a lot of change with some of this stuff happening right now and having an effect on what we do. But I'm glad we're going forward with our plan and not letting the headwinds elsewhere stop us.
Yes, and that's why in some of the programs we didn't get super specific because some of the status of those programs was in question. But what we tried to speak to is some of the partners, and that was including some of the work from PSAP and Chicago Metropolitan Agency on Planning, as there seems to be a real commitment on the state level when it comes to some of those initiatives. So we tried to have the language lean into those partner agencies and language that's included in the framework in that regard.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, thank you so much. This is tremendous. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you.
Trustee Zyck?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, everybody who's done this hard work on this. I'm proud that the village is doing this and taking this step towards sustainability. It is something that is important. A lot of people look at the cost, the capital cost, the initial cost of getting to something like this. And sure, there is a cost, but today on the consent agenda, item B was resolution approving the award of a contract for furnishing of LED streetlight fixtures. So we're finishing up that part of it, which is attainable to this. And Manager Recklouse, thank you for some information. Earlier, we're approximating that we're going to save 591,000 kilowatt hours per year just with that particular project. And if I'm doing the math right, that looks like it should be about $100,000 a year in savings that we've got because of that. So, and that's ongoing. So yes, there are some costs to getting sustainability programs up and going, but the long-term effects that they have are really what we're looking at. So thank you for all the hard work, and thank you for the hard work going forward too to get this thing implemented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Manganaro?
Thank you. I do want to just go on with the thanks to the entire staff, and Director Rodman, your comment is well taken in reading the plan, that it really did take the entire village to get this done. I kind of wish Director Paperniak were still here, because so many of these action items have his group's names on them. And I like that we are keeping this as a living document. I really appreciate the effort that takes and the constant work. There are a couple things with regard to mobility that I just wanted to ask about. There's so many things I'd love to dive more deeply on, but for now I'm going to ask a couple questions. One is identifying the gaps in pedestrian and bicycle networks and barriers. Are we going to see something on that? Is that something we can find where the gap analysis is?
So what we currently have, we do have an adopted bike plan, which does highlight some of the priority areas, some of the areas that we focus, make some of our decisions based on currently. So there's a number of projects where we want to widen those to multi-use paths, things of that nature. We base that off the work that was done in that bike plan, but there's always opportunity to find more information and determine where we need to focus on that.
Thank you. And the second question is related to that. I didn't get enough homework time to search the site for the bike plan and to see what the recommendations were. Will I find it there?
The bike plan should be posted on, it should be on the website, yes.
Is that it? Trustee LaBedz, one more thing?
Yeah, I almost forgot to ask. I was really interested in the section on land with the little highlight box where it says that that we own and maintain one Army Corps of Engineer delineated wetland, 3 naturalized wet bottom retention basins, and 1 naturalized pond. And I was just curious if you happen to know where those are.
I do know where at least 1 or 2 of them are. I don't know where all of them are, as Public Works is in charge of maintaining them. But I do believe one of them is right on Sigwalt. It's a significant one. I'd say about 4 blocks from here. But
That's
I can
the
get
one where there were houses were built. It was a single-family home that was.
Yeah, there was one home over approximately the
large-
2-block area
Yeah.
right near Kennecott.
Okay.
And Sigwalt. Yes, that's one of them. We can get you the list of all of them so you can know exactly where they are.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. That's all.
Tom, anybody on this side? Trustee Bertucci?
Just as we're thinking this through, I'm sorry, Michael. I don't know, when I look at you, I think of Jack Siegel for some reason, but that's okay.
He must have been very good
That's
looking.
a good comparison. though.
Yeah, that's a compliment.
It's very respectful.
Yeah, Michael. Businesses, I feel like I'm the only business in my building that recycles. How are we doing on getting more businesses to recycle? Because they're not really necessarily required, is that correct?
I would have to defer to our public health department.
Okay.
They're really and it speaks to the multi-department effort. While we brought a lot of the information together and sort of whittled through the strategies with them. We really relied on each of the departments that were the subject matter experts to give us that feedback. So I would have to rely on them for that answer and can get that to you, though.
Okay. Again, just curious, and maybe staff could, or maybe Randy, you know off the top of your head.
Yeah, I mean, you know, our contract with Groot is for single-family residential.
Sure.
And, you know, when that, we're going to begin talking about that contract in, you know, putting it out for bid in the next year or so. There are options for the village to include multifamily and other types of uses in our contract. A lot of businesses, you know, especially if they're franchises or if they're a bigger, you know, apartment building, you know, where they have relationships, they have their own relationships with waste haulers, and so they may not want to be in our system. So that's something that we can talk about more broadly to determine if we want to get in that business.
Well, yeah, which I understand. I guess what obviously chooses our, you know, who we're going to use. And then, I don't know, there's probably, 10 or 20 businesses in the complex, so to speak, that I'm in. And I had to get because we kind of voted, and the ladies in my office were really pushing me to recycle, I was like, oh, let's do that. But we had to get like a separate bin with a lock on it because we were the only ones recycling. We had to order it from the service. And I was just wondering if there's any education or anything else.
There's
and I'm stealing Wendy because this is really Wendy's area. Kind of like
there absolutely
stealing
can
her
be
thunder
more. There's absolutely more we can do in that regard in terms of education. Enforcement is difficult.
Yeah, I would
it's not-
imagine.
but education for sure. And then, you know, one of our best partners with this is the Solid Waste Agency in Northern Cook County.
Yeah.
It's a co-op with all of the neighboring communities, and then we actually have throughput for our waste kind of shared to keep our prices down. They have a really significant education campaign, and I'll bring that up the next time I talk to them about business education, because we spend so much time on residential education. It's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of requiring and that type of thing for businesses, but I think there are a lot of more business owners might be more apt to recycle if they were educated and at least given the opportunity to.
Thanks, Trustee Bertucci. Anybody else? Okay, Michael, thank you. Nicely done. You know what? I think it would be rude of me to not recognize there are a number of residents in the audience. Is there anyone who wanted to address this particular item? I had a feeling Robert might. So, all right. So come on up.
First off, just thank you so much to the village staff for putting
Mike,
this
you
together.
can take a seat. If we need, we'll call you.
Thank you so very much to the village staff for putting this together and for, you know, taking the Safe Streets Alliance's, input on it. It's a member who put that draft together. Really would like to just kind of echo something that we had brought up. I think overall the plan is great, really support it. And I think it's a great first step. I just like to see it if we can have a little bit more ambition and more teeth to it in some things. So we're just going to focus on the mobility section, and I might have missed something that was updated, but the mobility goals talk a lot about encouraging residents and village staff to use more active transportation like biking and things like that. But it fails really to push us to build the actual infrastructure that makes that possible. For example, M1 says to identify gaps in the bike and pedestrian network, but I understand these plans usually are 10 to 15 years. I understand they might be revisited in 3 or so, but in 10 to 15 years, we can do a lot more than just identify. We can identify and fill gaps. Though there's other language around updating subdivision rules to encourage more bike infrastructure, implementing sustainable practices into road designs. I mean, again, these are great first steps, and I love them, but I think it would be more effective to give some definite targets, like adding X miles of protected bike lanes to our bike routes instead of just the sign that says bike route. That would actually, help people get on there and more comfortable. So both as an individual and as a member of the Safe Streets Alliance, I've talked with many residents who want to do more bike riding, but they don't feel that it's really safe to do so on our roads. So it's great to say we want our residents to do this. It's greater to listen to them and give them actual bike routes that enable more people to use active transportation. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. I think this is a good first step. I'm hopeful like you are that more action will happen in time here. Sooner than later. Yes. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, then I think there's no action that you
We
need
do
from
have a
us?
motion.
Oh, you do need a motion. Okay, there we go. So we're looking for one. I'll steer my eyes over to Trustee Dunnington.
I would like to make a motion to adopt the Arlington Heights Sustainability Plan.
Second.
All right, what do you know? Motion made by Trustee Dunnington, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Is there any further discussion? And anyone from the audience, seeing none? Is this a voice vote?
You do voice vote, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay. Good to go? Yep. All right. Then that concludes our new business, and I think I'll call on Manager Recklouse for item number 11.
I believe Trustee Schwingbeck may have one more item for tonight.
He does?
I do. Thank you,
He
Manager
does.
Reckless.
Okay, go ahead.
If the board and Mayor Tinaglia, you can just join me down below for a minute. I have a quick little presentation to make.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
I'll be last.
Kind of surprised you there, didn't I?
Completely. A little frightened.
Well, we had the opportunity this past weekend as a village board to attend a ribbon cutting ceremony, and we do a lot of those throughout the year, ribbon cutting, ribbon tying. This one was a little unusual. It was for a company called Mary Furniture, and they're located just south of Central on Arlington Heights Road. It's a first-generation owner from Turkey. He and his wife opened up this store. They have a warehouse in a neighboring community. They were looking for a place to open up their store. They selected Arlington Heights. I had a little chat with them, and they were very excited about this community, mainly because of our village staff and working with them, and also our business community, Chamber of Commerce. So they decided to open up their business here. And that said alone, we've done ribbon cuttings like this before, but this was a little unusual because being a gentleman from Turkey, we actually had the attaché general from the Turkish Council, Ahmet Samet Tukalua. He brought along the Turkish Consul General from Chicago to come to this ribbon cutting, Mr. Tahir Bora Atatürk. So they were at the ribbon cutting. They came out, and they gave Mayor you a little plaque here in recognition of all your support, not only for businesses in our community in general, but for your support for their business as well. Wonderful. So I know I was there representing you on Saturday, but I wanted to pass that on. They also gave you a nice box of candied chestnuts, which I'm sure you're going to share with the rest of the board a little bit later tonight. So anyway, with their appreciation.
Wonderful, thank you. I think I'd like to go on record personally for thanking Trustee Schwingbeck and all those who attended in my absence. I had a family wedding over the weekend and unable to attend, and I know that we did a great job representing the community as we always do. And then to thank the group there's a picture on the screen of it in action. So thank you for passing along, and thank you for representing very much. Appreciate it very much. Thanks to all those who attended. Appreciate it.
Oh, while you're all walking back, Mayor Tenaya, I might as well begin the next item of staff would respectfully request that the board enter into closed session per 5 ILCS 120/2C1, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion made by Trustee Manganaro, seconded by Trustee Zyck. Is there any further discussion from anyone? Is this a roll call vote?
Yes,
It is.
Excuse me, Mayor. Randy, there was also an item for the approval of the minutes.
Oh.
I don't know if you want to.
Also, yes, I apologize. Also for, let's see here. What is it?
Minutes is 2C21.
Yeah, 5 ILCS 1/2C21, approval of minutes, whether for the semi-annual approval of the minutes or
Just approval, yeah.
approval of minutes.
Okay, so does that have to be an amended motion then, accepted by the motion maker in the second?
That's fine. We can just entertain a new motion. I mean, whatever your pleasure, Mayor.
Okay, I just want to make sure we get it right. And so, is the motion maker and the second comfortable with that additional amendment?
Yes.
Oh, the two of you back there, right? You're both comfortable? Okay, we'll roll with it as that. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Maggie, please.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Trustee Manganaro and seconded by Trustee Zyck.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert? Trustee Dunnington? Yes. President Tinaglia?
Yes. Okay, motion passes. We will convene in closed session, and we will not be reporting out. And thank you for everyone for joining us tonight.